Hello and welcome to module number 4, an introduction to Scaling Scrum in the PeopleCert Scrum Master II certification training course. Scaling Scrum is essentially applying the Scrum framework to multiple teams working on a single product. This module will provide a high-level introduction to two approaches for scaling Scrum, Scrum at Scale and Scaling Scrum with Nexus, and then the Scaled Agile Framework, a framework not specific to scaling Scrum, but which can use Scrum as one of its components. We are not intending to explain details of any of these approaches beyond what is presented on the slides. If you desire more information, you can refer to the two scaling guides provided as part of our course supplemental materials in your course access area, and also to the SAFE website at scaledagile.com. It should be noted, however, that scaling Scrum isn't an automatic decision. There are reasons not to scale Scrum, which should carefully be considered before moving ahead. Some of those reasons include Scrum is not yet successfully implemented in an individual team. If that's the case, it would be even more difficult to implement Scrum at scale, meaning in a combination of several teams. Another reason for not ready to scale Scrum could be the product owners do not have the authority to make product decisions. Also, the organization as a whole is not ready to be agile by embracing the cultural changes necessary. And the idea of a self-managing team is not yet accepted, or engineering practices need improvement. These are some of the reasons for not being able to scale Scrum, or not possible to scale Scrum effectively. We take a look at some of the sites where all this information is coming from. Firstly, Scrum at Scale framework. So this is coming from scrumatscale.com. Then we have the Nexus framework, and that comes at scrum.org under resources, Scaling Scrum with Nexus. Then we have SAFE, which is coming from scaledagile.com. There are some sites where you can take a look at why you shouldn't scale agility, like this one is one of them. Another site to look at why scaling is not required or when not to scale Scrum is this site, failfastmoveon.blogspot. And the third site where you can check out is this one, medium.com, 7 things to check before you decide to scale Scrum. You will find links to all this in your bibliography information available at your learning portal. By the way, there will be only one question out of the 40 from this module. So we take a look at Scrum at Scale, followed by Scaling Scrum with Nexus and the Scaled Agile Framework in brief. We begin with the first section in this module 4, Scaling Scrum using Scrum at Scale. What is Scrum at Scale? It is a lightweight organizational framework in which a network of teams operating consistently with a Scrum guide can address complex adaptive problems while creatively delivering products of the highest possible value. Now, these products may be physical, digital, complex integrated systems, processes, services, etc. Scrum at Scale aims to build a healthy organizational culture through the pillars of empirical process control and the Scrum values. This is the Scrum at Scale guide. The definitive guide to Scrum at Scale, scaling that works, from Jeff Sutherland and Scrum Inc. This is authored by Dr. Jeff Sutherland and Scrum Inc. Describes the minimal set of components to scale Scrum by using Scrum and its resulting business agility across an entire organization. It can be used in all types of organizations within industry, government, nonprofits, or academia. This guide, The Scrum at Scale guide will be provided to you as part of our course materials in your learning access. Take a look at the Scrum at Scale framework. We see here on the left the how, the Scrum Master cycle, and on the right we see the what, the Product Owner cycle. And in between we have a collection of items such as the Executive Action Team. And on the right we have the Executive Meta Scrum. And we see the team process, metrics and transparency, product and release feedback, product increment. Then we have these other circles, continuous improvement and impediment removal, delivery. And on the right, we have strategic vision, release planning. We have the cross-team coordination on the left here, and on the right here, we have the backlog prioritization and the backlog decomposition and refinement. What this means is the Scrum at Scale guide begins with a section that covers the basics of getting started, followed by sections describing the two basic cycles. We have on the left the Scrum Master cycle. It coordinates the how through the efforts of the Scrum of Scrum's Master and the executive action teams shown in the center. While we have a Scrum Master for a single Scrum team, we have a Scrum of Scrum's Master for a collection of teams, while each team would have its individual Scrum Master. On the right, we have the Product Owner cycle, which oversees and coordinates the what rather than the how through the efforts of the Chief Product Owner and other product owners under the Chief Product Owner, other executives, and any other key stakeholders at the Executive Meta Scrum, which is an event in the Scrum at Scale. So here, leadership and other stakeholders express their preferences to the product owner team. They negotiate priorities, alter budgets, or realign teams to maximize the delivery of value. These two cycles of the how from the Scrum Master cycle and the what from the product owner cycle, they intersect at the middle. At two parts, at two components, we have the team process at the top and the product and release feedback at the bottom. The first component, team process intersection, aims to maximize the flow of completed work, increase performance of the team, achieve a sustainable way of operating, and accelerating the customer feedback loop. Whereas the product and release feedback is gathered from stakeholders. There is also a third intersection called metrics and transparency. The goals of this are to provide the appropriate context with which to make data-driven decisions, reduce decision latency, streamline the work required by teams, stakeholders, or leadership. Therefore, taken as a whole, these cycles, the two cycles, produce a powerful supporting structure for coordinating the efforts of multiple teams along a single path. The teams in Scrum at Scale. We have a Scrum of Scrum's team, SOS team that is. We have a Chief Product Owner of the CPO, and we have the Scrum of Scrum's Master, SOSM. Scrum at Scale helps an organization to focus multiple networks of Scrum teams on prioritized goals. It aims to achieve this by setting up a structure which naturally extends the way a single Scrum team functions across a network and whose managerial function exists within a minimum viable bureaucracy or an MVB. An MVB or a minimum viable bureaucracy is defined as having the least amount of governing bodies and processes needed to carry out the functions of an organization without impeding the delivery of customer value. It helps to achieve business agility by reducing decision latency or the time to make a decision, which has been noted as a primary driver of success. When implementing networks of teams, it is critical to develop a scalable reference model prior to scaling. The reference model is a small set of teams that coordinate to deliver every sprint. As these teams successfully implement Scrum, the rest of the organization has a functioning, healthy example of Scrum to replicate. It serves as a prototype for scaling Scrum across the next network of teams. This team here, a Scrum of Scrum's team, is a larger team of multiple teams that replicates this ideal at scale. While the Scrum Guide defines the optimal team size as being fewer than 10 people, however, research has determined that optimal team size is 4.6 people on average. Therefore, the optimal number of teams in a Scrum of Scrum is 4 or 5.